What is up, everybody? Today I figured I would make a video showing how to do an armrest here. So this is what we are going to be making. This is off of a 53 Clipper Deluxe. Starting out with this, and I figured I'd just show you like kind of the basic techniques that I use. So the first thing, which I've skipped over, is you disassemble the armrest. There's really nothing to it because there's just some screws that hold the pieces together. There's 4 screws. You take this piece off, then you just peel the old vinyl off. Really nothing to it. So ideally, so we can see when we peel this vinyl off here, because there's kind of, the vinyl has to stretch, it ends up in this shape. And we can see that if we take it and we pull it in a straight line like that, that it kind of curves like this. So obviously the vinyl has to stretch some. Now you can see here, for example, that there's this sort of wave in it here, right? So what the wave means is that this part of the vinyl is stretched more like this than this part here. It has to stretch. If the wave is going like this, as we can see, there's this little wave here, then the vinyl is stretching in this dimension. If you see the wave going the other way, then it would have to stretch the other dimension. So you're buying vinyl, it may or may not have a grain. So this is my test piece that I had from some scrap vinyl lying around of the wrong color. This stuff has a grain. Look how stretchy this is in the grain. But then if I pull it against the grain, it doesn't stretch at all. So because we see the waves going this way, as we can see, I had it like that, and that worked perfectly, so it could stretch there when it needed to. This vinyl I'm using here, it stretches a little bit in each direction, but it doesn't stretch very well. So the technique is slightly different depending on which, whether you have grain in the vinyl or not. I mean, it doesn't matter that much. The main thing is if you have grain in the vinyl, you need to know which way to run the grain. If you don't, then it's just kind of whatever. So the first thing I do is I take some 3M Super 77, and I've already done this here. You just follow the directions on the can. It tells you to wait at least 30 seconds. You don't have to do like super heavy or nothing, just like, spray that. What I did is I sprayed this piece, then I sprayed the foam, then I sprayed the back side of this. So this is all completely coated with Super 77. For this vinyl here, as you can see, there's only residue on the sides because this stretches so easily that I didn't have to put a whole lot of force into it. This one, well, as I was showing you before, it's a lot harder for it to stretch. So I had to cover the entire thing for it to work right. So the first thing we can take a look at here is we can start folding this material over this way. As we can see, we're going to run into a bit of a problem, which is that it has to fold around the curve. So what we can do is stretch the material slightly. And I feel like I don't even have adhesive there. Am I missing something? Sometimes you have to add a little more adhesive. Okay. For this 3M Super 77, you can see when it's reached the correct level of tackiness. You can see how it kind of pulls apart there. That's getting there. If you touch a wet surface and you don't see any of that, then it's still too wet. Even this is still a little tacky. So I have some residue on my fingers here. That has a good amount of tack to it there. This is still too wet. And the other thing is, this will get dirty real fast. Don't worry about this, because using this, you can just clean it off with 91% alcohol. Like literally, this can get as dirty as can be. 1 minute later, it's completely cleaned up. So don't even worry about that. I mean, obviously don't try and make it dirty on purpose, but it's not something we got to worry about. Okay, so this is pretty well tacked up now. So we can kind of fold that over and then get some of this here. We're going to do a bit of a stretch on it there. And as you can see, we're getting some creases, which is to be expected. So what we want to do, first of all, we'll turn around and make sure we don't have any like wrinkles or anything too weird going on there. That actually looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is cut some relief cuts. So first of all, this doesn't have to come out so far. So we're going to unfold it. This is a carpet cutting knife, actually. You can get these at Home Depot or whatever. This is razor sharp. It's sharper than a box knife. You can also just use a normal razor blade. This one doesn't seem sharp. So that's the problem sometimes. I flipped this blade around. Let me get a new blade. So I flipped the blade around to prepare for the video. The problem is that the blade will dull itself inside of the knife if you press really hard when you're using the other side of the blade. So I got a fresh side here. Here we go. So we can trim off that excess material, stick it right to the table. But there's still some more work we need to do. And this one, there's a bit of a rust line, so it makes it very easy. But you can see the crease in there even if you don't have the rust line. And then we just pinch this here and make these relief cuts. And you want to go maybe like 1/2 inch at a time. Or even 1/4 inch at a time if the curve is really tight. There we go. Actually, I'm going to make another one there. You can see they were doing basically the same sort of thing here. But I don't know if they were using extra stretchy material or if it was already sort of like formed or what exactly they were doing to get it right. You know, because if you try and do this exact thing, it's not really going to work. Anyway, so we already know this will fold flat. We can take our tabs here. I like to go every other tab. Doesn't really matter. And I'm pulling these as I fold them down here. And then go back with our tabs. The nice thing about Super 77 is that it has a pretty good amount of working time. So you can undo all this and then do it again. It's not gonna hurt anything. Yeah, so ignore how dirty that is there. But check this out. That looks pretty darn clean. Really nothing to complain about. And then on this particular armrest, let me get the trim piece, I'll show you. The trim piece on this goes over that, so we got about like 1/8 of an inch buffer. If we were gonna like make the cut like a little too far this way or something weird, but we didn't do that. I'm just saying, you know, if we did. So I'm gonna do this other half here and then get back to you. All right, we got the other half done here. I don't remember which side was the new half. Literally don't even remember. I think it was this side. Anyway, now you probably already know what's going to happen. So kind of the same process here. So we can tuck this vinyl up one piece at a time. Now, like I said, this one has it's making a bit of a rust line, but if it's not doing that, all you have to do is tuck this stuff up here and then get a marker and then just mark it with a marker. Really nothing to it. So we're going to get this done here. And I can feel that it's fine. But if it's your first time doing this, you want to look at the other side while you tuck that up and just make sure that it looks how you actually want it to end up looking. Because what we're going to do is we're going to make our relief cuts there. As you can see, I have sort of an outline on this already for roughly like what you could trim off before you make any relief cuts. But all we're going to do is basically like this one here. So flatten this back out so it's easier to cut. And then cut a set distance from our kind of guideline there. And then we can make our relief cuts, especially on these interior ones. These are pretty tight curves, so you want to make a lot of cuts here. Fortunately, on the interior ones, because they go this way, then they're not going to overlap. So you don't have to worry about these all like jumbling up. On these exterior ones, you can see that half of them sort of overlap other ones. And the ones that overlap the other ones don't stick as well unless you add extra adhesive. Because there's the adhesive only on the one side. All right, now we should just be able to kind of go to town here and start sticking these guys down. And you always want to stretch as we were doing originally. All right. So, but remember, before you go too far, you want to make sure this looks okay. We got a little close on this one cut here. Not that anyone's really ever going to notice that. But what we can do is just come back and just stretch that part just a little bit more. There we go. Still looks perfectly good over there. Come back here. That one was starting to slip, so we reapplied that one. Get these all in place here. Again, these are getting a little close. So this is all stuck together here. So we can unpeel some of this and come and stretch it and give ourselves a little bit more slack without having to like really yank on these things so much. There we go. These are kind of peeling off already. It's not really a good sign. We might need to put more adhesive down. We'll see how it goes here. Looks pretty good. Again, we have a little bit of a crease on that. Not a crease, a little bit of a cut. It went a little too far. I'm going to just see again if I can just get a little extra stretch there. Here we go. Perfecto. So then for these parts here, what we're going to do, again, you want to kind of figure it out beforehand. We're basically going to fold this stuff down. So what that actually means is on this here, how we happen to have a relief cut right here already. We need to have a relief cut there. I don't know, how did this knife get so dull? It was sharp at the beginning of this video. This is not normal. I was gonna find a new blade. But I can't find where my blades are right this second. So on this particular one, there's a relief here, which comes in handy for us. So we can fold the vinyl, and I'm doing a good amount of stretch here, but it's not going to be perfect. Now this is not actually seen. You cannot see this part of the armrest, but I'm taking our extra material and sticking it in there. And then once we can see that there's way too much here. So once we have where that's going to go, we can come back and we can realize we can trim this down here. I think we can trim even more than that. And I think this needs some extra adhesive as well. I'm gonna go ahead and do this side and put more adhesive on. All right, it's been a few minutes. We can test our tackiness here. Looks nice and tacky. Okay, good. So remember, we're gonna start at the absolute corner here and kind of stretch our way over. And on this side, remember, that corner should look good. That's the only thing you're really gonna be able to see. And then, whoops, run it up like this here. And of course, we do need some more relief cuts, or we will probably, yeah, we definitely do. So, man, I need an actual razor blade. Get that up there. And then the top of that's too sticky. I unstuck it myself by accident. Come on, you. There we go. So we can stick that one up there. I think this adhesive just needs more time to tack up. Stick that in there. So what I'm doing is we're just gonna tuck that in there. There we go. And again, you cannot see this once it's installed, so that's why it is looking like that. Not perfect. And let's see what I can do here. That really shouldn't have been folded like that. We're going to try. There we go. Nice. Again, this needs some more time to tack up here, but I'm gonna do the other side as well and get back to you. All right, now we just got to clean this up here. First thing you want to do is clean your hands so that you're not making this that much dirty when you try and clean it. Now, if you just get this Super 77 on stuff, actually this SuperTech brake parts cleaner or any non-chlorinated type brake parts cleaner will get it off really easily, but not super safe for you, and it'll sort of dissolve the vinyl, so you can't use that. Instead, you just want to use your standard 91% isopropyl rubbing alcohol. It's like $2 at Walmart. Very, very cheap and easy to find. And check out how fast all this residue comes off here. So look at this. It looks disgusting. Just gonna scrub this with the alcohol there. Look at that. Most of that already came off. Really nothing to it. Look at that, almost clean. Just get the sides here. There we go. That's pretty well cleaned up. Hit this part. I know we still got that huge blob right in the center. It's like the mother lode. Look at that. And we just got to do some detail work around the edges here. Things sticking to the table. Huge amount right there. There we go. We're pretty much done. And I'll show you what this looks like installed. Now, as it so happens to be, the paint color matching ones of these are doing, they're in the paint touch-up booth right now, so to speak. So literally wet paint, can't use those. But I do have a factory one, even though it's not the matching color. Look at that there, boom. Check that out. No time at all, got that cleaned up. So the installation for these is you have your trim piece here. So that sits on that. Sometimes this is hard to install with that trim piece on. You can see how it sticks out a little too far. Not an issue. Usually the easiest thing to do is you just stick the trim piece on this and get that kind of centered up there. And then if you stick this on the armrest as an assembly, usually it'll work just fine. So we stick that on there, get these things slid over the edges. Here we go. That's 1, 2, almost. There we go. So now we have our trim piece on, and again on the sides here. For the edges, you can sort of peel those up and get this thing to stick out a little bit. But what you want to do as well, you can go ahead and get your screws started, because this will flush it up to the piece. Usually pull those edges down. Apparently the screw holes in this one are pretty stripped, which I did not know. I have no clue who was messing with it in the past. Probably it was like that from the factory. Come on now. There we go. All right. We can see our edges got under control, but they knew that might be a problem, so that's why they have screw holes here. So what you want to do is just compress that a little easier to pilot this beforehand, but you can also just screw it in. Keep in mind, usually the screw hole is going to be a little above center. So let's drive our screw in there. Here we go. We were right on target. Press as hard as you can. Obviously, you do not want to rely on the screw or the plastic to get this thing kind of centered up. You want to press it down by hand, and then the screw will keep it in place. And then we have the other one here. Press that. Whoop. Where did that go? Okay, 1 second. Okay, got another screw there. Screw this guy in. It's really not hard to find these screw holes. That's why I never bother piloting them. That's screwed in all the way. There we go. And do a little bit more cleanup because we working on the table with all the overspray there. We got some goo on it, but no big deal. We know how to clean that off. There we go. And for this here, normally, see how I just lifted this thing up and kind of got it around that? That's all you need to do. See that? Just gonna pull up on the trim piece. Ooh, look at that. Looks perfect. Wipe off our little whatever the heck got on this since we cleaned it 1 minute ago. It's a very light color. It attracts dirt very easily. That is one downside. Even a little bit of dirt on the rag that I'm using to clean it, which is not ideal, but oh well. Clean that off. See on the inside here, you're really not going to see that too much. But for something like that, what you can do, you know, what might be easiest is you take a clean screwdriver blade and you can just kind of tuck it in. There we go. What I actually ended up doing is sort of cutting that area. You can also use your fingernail. If we wanted to fix this and make it perfect, it really wouldn't be hard because we can just take the piece back out and undo some of the things. But this is really perfectly fine and really in accordance with how they would come from the factory in terms of just quality level, you know, in general. And I can show you here. So this is the original armrest that I took out to be able to put this one in. And as you can see, we already have, that's the seam there. You know, there's already like, you could see that with this thing installed. These splits, you know. Now, never mind the fact that it's peeling up from age. That's unrelated. But, you know, and kind of this like unevenness here. Just these very minor sort of things like that. That crease there. It's right there. So really does not have to be perfect. Don't overthink it. And if you want to, for stuff like this, you can sometimes make it better by pressing this in here and taking a screwdriver and bending this piece down to match. It's pretty hard to do. Sort of a three-handed thing. Really what you need to do is get this on that and then like hit it with a hammer or something and kind of just bend that tab down. But like I said, this is like overthinking it. If you're trying to point out stuff like that, you need to be in like the Rolls-Royce restoration business or like the Packard 12 or whatever. Not the Clippers. These are Clipper armrests. They were not that expensive when they were new. These cars in today's money cost around $30,000. So they were nice, but not not that nice. They had their minor flaws, and nobody's ever going to care about something like that. So, and I'll show you the same technique that I demonstrated here on a senior armrest. So the senior armrests are just a little bit different. They're this huge wedge shape thing. Actually, let me zoom out a little bit here. Here we go. So really the techniques used, they're basically the same. You do have to have your adhesive all along the foam. This has a much more awkward shape with trying to get the material down here, and then also this inflection point, because you have excess material coming this way and you have this line, so there's a bunch of material that would be here that has to go somewhere, so to speak, right? Like you look at all the material that goes like this, and then once you come over here, that slopes down. If it was going flat, then you could just keep tipping it, but where it's going down, that has to have a stretch to it, and it's kind of weird. You end up doing a thing where you sort of make it pull this way. A little harder to describe. You can see my tab there doesn't want to stay in place. Not like it matters, you can never see that. Again, this is one of those, because you can see I have some paint scratches there. The door is here, so you're never going to see any of that. I don't bother fixing it if it's slightly wrong, and it's just whatever. Like in the back here, you got this tiny thing, you know, big deal. Like anybody's ever going to care. So I just want to show you guys my techniques. Hope you enjoyed this video. Any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. That being said, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys later.